Um, the next one is legitimization of paltry favors. So sometimes people feel like they can make a good excuse for not contributing something. And so a frequently used excuse is, well, I don't have enough. I don't have enough to contribute. And so this one can be used a lot if you're trying to get people to donate to some type of a cause. You can make a small amount of aid acceptable. And so in the example, the research example we'll talk about, the researchers called people up to get them to donate money to the American Cancer Society. And in the initial condition, people were just asked, would you like to donate? Right? And if they were only asked, would you like to donate, and they didn't say anything about making a small amount of aid acceptable, 29% of the people who were called donated an average of $1.44 per person. Now, let's see what happens if we apply the legitimization of paltry favors technique by just including this simple statement after would you like to donate. Even a penny would help. And you might have heard this from people trying to get you to make donations before. So they're saying even a penny would be fine. If you can give anything whatsoever, that's acceptable. And now, if they just included this simple statement in addition to the request, what they found is that now 50% of the people who were called donated an average of $1.54 each. Now, this isn't a huge increase in the amount that was donated, but you see almost, quite a big increase in the number of people who donated. And so if you do the math and say that you call 1,000 people to get donations, well, if you aren't using this strategy and you're just making the plain request, you're going to get $417.60 by calling 1,000 people. If you just include that simple statement, legitimizing paltry favors, saying even a penny would help, this would work out to $770. So almost twice as much money that you're going to get for this charitable cause just by saying even a penny would help. So that can be a very useful strategy, very influential. So questions about this one? All right. So in order to introduce our next influence tactic, I wanted to show you this classic Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. So Calvin ultimately wants a cookie from his mom. So he starts off and says, "Mom, can I set fire to my bed mattress?" "No, Calvin." "Well, then can I ride my tricycle on the roof?" "No, Calvin." "Well, then can I have a cookie?" And she says, "No, Calvin." Calvin says, "She's on to me." So what Calvin is trying to do here is use a strategy known as the door-in-the-face technique. So the door-in-the-face uses an appeal to reciprocity. Now, and this is another one of those fundamental human motives that we have. If somebody does something nice for us, we feel like we need to return the favor. It's just the decent thing to do. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And so the door-in-the-face works by starting off with a really large request. And the catch is that you don't expect your target to agree to this initial large request. So with Calvin, it was, can I set fire to my mattress? Right? And can I ride my tricycle on the roof? And so supposedly he asked this knowing that his mother is going to say no to these ridiculous requests. But then, after the person says no to the large request, the person asking will retreat to a smaller, more reasonable request. And so this retreat appears to be a concession. So it seems like you really wanted this big thing, but you'd be willing to give that up if you could just get the smaller thing instead. So one of the classic studies on this involved having the researchers walk up to undergraduate students like yourselves and asked them if they would be willing to chaperone a group of juvenile delinquents on a trip to the local zoo, right? And believe it or not, this is actually the smaller request, right? And so if they just went up and made this plain request, only 17% of the people agreed to help out with this project. But let's see what happens if they apply the door in the face strategy and start off with a really big request. I mean, this one already seems to be kind of a big request. It's an afternoon supervising juvenile delinquents on a trip to the zoo. But the large request involves asking people, would you be willing to volunteer 2 hours of your time every week for a period of at least 2 years to work with these juvenile delinquents? Okay. So that's a really big request. Instead of just one afternoon chaperoning them on a zoo trip, you're agreeing to work with them 2 hours a week for at least 2 years. That's a huge request. And nobody said yes to this gigantic request. But then they retreated from that to the smaller request, smaller by comparison. Would you be willing to at least chaperone them on the zoo trip then? And after they had said no to the huge request, the 2-year commitment, 51% of the people agreed to chaperone on the zoo trip, up from that original 17%. So again, this is a very, very powerful and influential strategy if you want to get people to comply with a request. So any questions about this one? All right. We have one other appeal to reciprocity that we'll talk about. This is the "that's not all" technique. And this is one that you saw on the Petty Paws ad just a minute ago, in which the initial request or the initial offer is immediately followed by some sort of bonus or discount. So it seems like the person who is trying to get you to buy something, in this case, is giving you something for free. And therefore, if you're going to reciprocate, then you would need to give something back to them. Right? So, does anybody remember what the "that's not all" thing was in the Petty Paws commercial? Yeah, the amazing shed ender. Call now and you get the shed ender as a free bonus. And you might have noticed in there they said kind of quietly after that, just pay shipping and handling. So they're lowballing you along with the "that's not all" technique there, throwing in the hidden shipping and handling fees. And they don't say how much the separate shipping and handling is, I don't think. So, sneaky people. All right. So, our next technique is an appeal to scarcity. Now, this involves the scarcity heuristic. And if you remember, heuristics are mental shortcuts that we use. And one shortcut that we use when trying to evaluate how valuable something is we think about how common versus how rare it is, how easy it is to get. And if something is rare, hard to find, we perceive it as being more valuable. Now, sometimes that's true. It's the whole supply and demand principle. If there's high demand for something, but short supply, that thing will increase in value. But a lot of times advertisers will try to make you think that something is really rare or really scarce in order to increase the odds that you'll actually purchase it. So they might offer something as a limited edition, or they'll say for a limited time only. Limited edition meaning that we've only made so many of these, it was in limited production, so act now if you want yours. Or for a limited time only, it's the same basic idea. This thing will only be available for a little while, so make sure that you jump on it while you still can, because you might change your mind later and then you'd be out of luck. Now, is anybody familiar with how the Walt Disney Company exploits this technique?
The vault.
Yeah, the Disney Vault. So how does that work?
They like
Yeah, they only release the movies for a limited time. So, The Lion King will come out on DVD, and they'll say, well, make sure you get it now because it'll only be available, and then it goes back in the Disney vault, and then it will actually be unavailable in stores for a period of years, and you can still find it used online for higher prices. But this seems to be a relatively effective strategy for them, and that they make people believe that if they want it, they better get it while it's out. Right? So, any questions about that? Now, you can also see this on Amazon.com. So let me switch over here real quickly. I'll show you how Amazon does this. So, do any of you visit Amazon on a regular basis? Shop on Amazon? Okay, a couple of people. Well, if you've ever looked on there, you've probably seen the lightning deals. It's this little gold treasure chest up here, and if you click on it, they have all these deals that are pretty significant discounts off of their normal prices, but they're only available for a limited time. And they even have a little counter down here showing you how much longer this deal will last. So if you want this robe, you better get it within the next 2.5 hours. And you can also see how many people are claiming these deals. And they will run out. If enough people claim this deal, then they won't offer it anymore. So if you see a deal that doesn't last for very long, and a lot of people seem to be getting that, then that might influence you to say, ooh, that seems like a good thing. I better go ahead and get that while it's still available. I don't want to miss out. Right? And they have a new one every couple of hours, as you can see here. They'll give you hints as to what they are. Careful of those. All right. So, any questions about the appeals to scarcity? All right. And finally, we have appeals to authority. And this involves having somebody who is supposedly an authority figure on this product provide an endorsement. And this is another one that was used in that Petty Paws commercial. So how was this done in the Petty Paws? Yeah, there was a vet that came on, Dr. G. Bukoff there, who came on and said how great a product this is and talked about all its advantages. But of course, you don't really know much about this guy. You know it says veterinarian under his name, but he could just be an actor. If he is a vet, you don't know how good of a vet he is. I actually looked this guy up out of curiosity. I Googled him and found his website. And he is a veterinarian, but he actually practices this kind of new agey holistic pet medicine. So I don't think I'd want him treating my dogs, and I don't really trust his opinion that much on the Petty Paws product. Incidentally, I've talked to a lot of groomers about this because I was curious. I've got a couple of dogs. We have a hard time trimming their nails, so it seemed like a neat thing when I saw the ad. But the groomers say that the dogs have pretty much the same reaction to the Petty Paws as they do to the vacuum when you turn it on, which is they get really scared and freak out because this thing has an electric motor in it and it's noisy. It makes this high-pitched sound that drives them crazy. So they don't sit there all calmly like you saw in the commercial. They're pulling away, trying to get away from you, and freaking out. So anyway, based on those recommendations, I don't really advise that anybody get the Petty Paws unless you've got a super laid-back pet. Right? Now, you also need to watch out for celebrity endorsements because celebrities aren't necessarily authority figures on certain products. Now, sometimes you'll have a celebrity endorse a product, like Rachel Ray has. You see this a lot with these cooking shows. Mario Batali and Rachel Ray, they'll have these products, like these knives that they'll sell, and it has the celebrity's name on the product, so you think, well, it must be good if they're endorsing it, but that isn't necessarily the case. In fact, I've got one of Rachel Ray's knives, and it's pretty dull. I got this ceramic knife from Harbor Freight Tools that for like $10 that works way better than this one that costs about $20. Just because a celebrity says it's a good thing, that doesn't necessarily make it true. Right? So, any questions about this?